I never thought that I would see the day that this new school generation have these little 1 year olds walking around almost cussing and, not real cussing, but like baby cussing. And the parents think it's funny. And, the parents can't even understand what they're saying. But the little kids on their own mind, they be saying some things and thinking things that, the parents don't really know what they mean. But they know what they mean. And, they talking junk in their own little language. And they look at each other and laugh because they understand each other. They're a little sassy, barely coming out the womb, right? Staring you down, like they got an attitude and, like they're gonna, say something to you like they're gonna get you straight or something, right? Well, I know old school, we could barely, speak 2 words, right? By the time we were like 3 years old. And when we did speak those words, it better have been the language that our parents understood that was not in a disrespectful way, lest we bat our eyes and we, like bend a little bit for the threat of being hit, right? That's what I understand as old school. But these little kids coming out today, what's that, right? They're not afraid of anything or anybody. Bold. I mean, they're so bold. And some of these young parents think it's funny. These new school, don't understand that old school stuff, what I'm saying, kept us straight. We had to walk on a straight line. We weren't walking zigzag like these little, new school, right? We understood what attention to detail meant versus these young school or new school, all right? Because we couldn't get away with the stuff that these kids get away with today. We wasn't having issues in a one parent household where they were the judge and the neighborhood was the jury. The neighborhood, was involved whether you wanted them to be or not. That's right. If they saw you cutting up or acting up, they had already, enforcements going on. They were the law enforcement. What police coming to the door for what? They didn't need the police when you had neighbors like we had. They didn't have to worry about being strapped, okay? Their fist, okay? Or the belt was the strap. They were strapped, all right? They will strap you with that belt if you cut up. Yes, they did. And then tell your parents that they did it. And guess what happened when your parents found out? They would strap you too with that belt. They sure did. They didn't play back then. No, this new school stuff, they little sensitive. I never thought I'd see the day when the little, young school look like they want to talk junk to the parents, in Walmart and, the stores. And that's, where they got an audience, the parents telling them no. And they're, talking junk back, what I'm saying? Talking about, yes, and I want this, and that entitlement attitude. What was that? What was that? What we were entitled to back in old school, we were entitled, okay, to a kind of blessing that we didn't really want, okay? And that blessing, as you already know, what I'm saying, meant that, you're going to get your hind parts beat, all right, by your parent, okay, who was the judge, okay? And they didn't always wait for the jury to make a decision on your punishment, all right? So this new school versus the old school, it's a disconnect. All right. Is somebody in the room listening? Because I just, want to know. And I want you to know that T has spoken. And until the next time you sip with me, you stay planted on your journey.